Now, at this juncture, we would like to open the floor for questions. I have two questions. Question number one. I would like you to give us your own assessment of the fiscal 2012 results and also your view of the current fiscal year. Compared with the actual rate, the currency is assumed at somewhat higher level for the Japanese yen. If the exchange rate changes much substantially and yen is much weaker, the actual performance would have been much better. And what's the reason for using this assumption? Secondly, how does Toyota's management change compared with the pre-crisis period? Prior to the financial crisis, the break-even volume was substantially higher than 8 million units, but how low has the break-even volume come down? I would like to answer the questions breaking down into two parts, Part 1 and Part 2. With respect to the general assessment of the financial results of the previous fiscal year, for the first time in 5 years, we were able to achieve a positive profit on the standalone basis. And above anything else, during this period, we have been supported by customers, and once again on this occasion, I would like to extend my heartfelt, deepest gratitude to all the customers. We went through many trials and tribulations. We were challenged by adversity, but we have never changed our basic philosophy and stance of always trying to come up with ever better cars. And at the same time, we have been supported by suppliers, dealers, and above all, our employees made concerted efforts in a very intensified manner. And composite result of all those efforts is what you see here today. So on this occasion, I would like to express my heartfelt gratitude to all those people who supported Toyota over this very difficult period. Now, as I mentioned in my earlier remarks, we now in the position to have a true competitiveness that enables sustainable growth. Have we really turned ourselves into such a company as described in Global Vision? Frankly speaking, I think that we are now at the starting point to move forward to that point. That is to say, we can start making efforts for achieving sustainable growth. And in that sense, I'm excited and I feel exhilarated, including those of you in the media and including investors. I would like you to look at Toyota because we are going to make a new start as a company with a true competitiveness that can achieve sustainable growth. From myself, I would like to answer your question. But before I move into my answer to those questions, as I mentioned in the presentation earlier, the consolidated operating income of the previous year compared with the previous fiscal year represented the increase of over 960 billion yen. And of that, the impact of yen depreciation was 150 billion yen. And therefore, primary portion of the increase in profit was the cost reduction efforts and also company-wide efforts to improve profitability. Those efforts being together with suppliers, and that accounts for the majority portion of profit increase. You also asked a question regarding the projection for the current fiscal year. The increase in volume and also the correction of yen depreciation are reflected in the projection for the current fiscal year, and also higher raw materials prices reflecting yen depreciation, and also the research and development expenses for the future growth and those advanced investments are all factored in. And in terms of profit improvement, we have included in the projection all those items that are already planned in pipeline. By making continued efforts for improving profitability, we intend to consistently improve a profit structure. Furthermore, with respect to exchange rate or its impact, our approach has not changed from the past. That is to say, in calculating earnings projections, we use the most recent exchange rate we run it up by 5 yen level, and therefore we use assumption of 90 yen to the dollar and 120 yen to the euro. Moving on to your second question, that is to say, what's the greatest change now compared with our management prior to the financial crisis triggered by Lehman Brothers debacle? For the past 4 years, there's one thing that I constantly and consistently said, and Toyota is becoming a company that can really follow through and achieve what I have continued to say. That is to say, to create ever better cars and also to exceed customers' expectations, to win smile on their smiles. At the initial stage, what does it mean to create ever better cars? Those were some of the rather harsh questions we received, but we simply continued making efforts, always giving priority to ever better cars, and that resulted in the Crown, the new Avalon, which were extremely well accepted in the market. So by showing those actual products, I think our approach of ever better cars is better understood, and therefore, based upon ever better cars, we intend to hone our ability to make a new start aiming at having a true competitiveness to achieve sustainable growth. I also have two questions. First of all, with respect to the size of the domestic production, once again, I would like to ask President Toyoda to talk about his thoughts. Right now, yen's appreciation is being corrected. This may be the tailwind for your domestic production. But when yen was extremely strong, I think your policy was to decrease the proportion of exports in the domestic production to below 1/2. But with the yen's depreciation, how are you going to maintain 3 million units of domestic production? There has been clear signs of improved performance both in the previous fiscal year and the current fiscal year. In terms of capex for the current fiscal year, it stands at 910 billion yen. This seems to be around 60% of the capex at its peak, aiming at sustainable growth. How are you going to use the profit generated by improved profit? First, with respect to the domestic production, the size of that and our approach to that, as we have been saying over the years, Toyota Motor Corporation is a global company which was born and founded in Japan. And furthermore, for Toyota to be Toyota, that is to say what it means to be Toyota, we need certain level and scale of domestic production which stands at 9 million units. And because we have domestic production of the magnitude of 3 million, various industries and various companies can sustain manufacturing activities here in Japan. And that approach or that thinking has not changed whatsoever. Yen's appreciation or yen depreciation, those are short-term fluctuations of currencies. But we wanted to establish the profit structure that is not under sway by those short-term factors. And we always wanted to minimize the impact of exchange rate fluctuations. And that policy remains also unchanged, and therefore 3 million units in domestic production here in Japan would represent Toyota as having true competitiveness. We will constantly make efforts to have this true competitiveness with the production that stands at 3 million units. But the size of this 3 million units in domestic production has been maintained since 1980s. At that time, overseas production was 200,000 units, but currently we produce 5 million units outside of Japan and 3 million units produced here in Japan. And therefore, this 3 million units was the foundation that supported the overseas production to grow from 200,000 to 3 million units. So we do not separate the production both domestically and overseas. As a global company, Toyota wants to acquire and further enhance true competitiveness. And from that perspective, we need to have certain size of domestic production, which is competitiveness here in Japan, and that is the size of 3 million. That's the foundation for us having true competitiveness, and I hope you will truly understand that. In addition to that, another aspect of your question was what sort of usage we are going to put those funds to. My answer is only one. That is to say, to build ever better cars. To sustain that, we need human resources. We need to have certain systems and structure of the company. And aiming that, we introduced TNGA, an approach, and we also put in place a new management business structure, business organization, as well as business units. If I use an analogy of a tree as a reflection of a Toyota, I think that tree has grown very significantly in the past history of 70 years. But at the same time, with the growth of the trunk of the tree, there has been various branches, some small, grew together. And we are going to prune those small branches so that the true sizable trunk can continue to grow bigger and bigger. And that pruning represents our efforts to establish TNGA and also business unit to really support the growth of the trunk. So not simply relying on external factors, we will continue to make solid efforts to which we will invest resources and both financial and other characteristics. The specifics of that has been fully explained by President. TNGA aims simultaneously the fundamental and far-reaching improvement of product features and also improved cost and higher efficiency. So we'll use funds for that purpose. And furthermore, we intend to make solid investment for infrastructure that supports a further enhancement of efficiency of operations. Furthermore, we will continue to make investment in research and development, especially for environment and safety, in a very strategic manner to sustain further growth and development. And furthermore, for CAPEX, we intend to make CAPEX with a viewpoint of a medium and long-term growth and development of the company as a whole steadily and efficiently.